tonight, the entire idea of this show is actually, it's going to be really having a discussion with you, the audience, about what the title is all about and actually what's happening here. When I first started Geeksvana as a drone channel, I knew that I wanted it to do things a little bit differently. This was never going to be a channel focused on unboxings or extensive tests of the drones themselves. Instead, I wanted to focus more on the side of covering topics and investigating stories and that type of thing. As time went by, it was the reason why, as we grew, I registered as a journalist with the NUJ. I studied in journalism and the ethics surrounding it. And as the channel grew, we started to find a bit of a natural niche within the area of drone regulations, both here in the UK, and actually we have videos on drone regulations worldwide. Much of my focus actually came from my own start in drones as a recreational flyer and my concern over the lack of answers to some pretty basic questions. I just really wanted to know where to fly my drone and found there was very limited readily available information. I would basically say, okay, I've got this Parrot Bebop 2 and I want to fly it over here. Am I allowed to do that? And it was very difficult to be able to get some really concise, precise answers to that. And hence we're here. Through Geeksvana, we have tried to provide this information both for new people coming into the hobby, all the way through to commercial operators and beyond. This has meant spending countless hours digesting and seeking the interpretation of reams of documents, so we're able to produce simple short videos explaining where you can fly your drone in real terms, in the real world. You know, that's the kind of advice that we want to offer you here. This has led us to cover a wide range of topics, from crowdfunding failures to the latest news from the UK CAA, and also work in collaboration with the MPCC counter drones team. This has helped bring to our audience first-hand information about drone rules and how they are actively enforced. So again, rather than just being words on a piece of paper, how they actually affect us when we're out flying our drone, which of course is the most important thing that you, the audience, really cares about. From interviews with the CAA and critical coverage of the recent releases of their CAP documents, with live shows on this channel actually directly leading to changes in those documents, to our work with the MPCC counter-drones team to bring our audience's attention to how enforcement in the UK actually works, we focus on really trying to get you the information that you need. Now, I always try to ensure that Geeksvana, myself, are not the story, basically. So, you know, it isn't really a good idea for the journalist to be the story. This isn't always possible because I do prefer to operate with total transparency to my audience, hence this evening's show. Now, it makes perfect sense to me that if this channel is aimed at providing you with the information needed, then ensuring we are as transparent as possible is also something which is very important. Something like tonight's announcement is an exciting and I feel potentially valuable opportunity for me to deliver the views of drone flyers of all levels within the UK directly to the police, forming the enforcement policies and training officers nationally. The key part here being the type of advisory group, meaning that this is more than, in my opinion, just simple lip service. Tonight, we are going to explain a little more about what the group is, including showing you parts of the Constitution, as well as taking your questions and also opening myself up to a little analysis from my colleague Graham. Graham is actually, he has actually been very busy at work today, bless him, and he is he hasn't got the loud shirt on. I warn you now, anyone that's going to be disappointed that there's no loud shirt, but also he's going to be taking in a lot of this information fresh as you are, which I think is actually quite an exciting way to do it. So let's bring Graham in. Graham, how are you, sir?
Tired and hungry. Those are the two words to describe me at the moment: tired and hungry, but very pleased to be here. And yeah, looking forward to this one. Although it is, yeah, it's quite a late notice one.
Indeed.
And yeah, I am not across the details, everyone. So I am proper studio guinea pig.
Well, I think there's actually quite a good thing to that, because then the fresh questions that pop in your mind will be the ones that you ask. And again, I you know, genuinely, Graham, when you have them, do ask them. it's an interesting concept, because there's always been that sort of thought process for me as far as where the line is, as far as what actually happens. So if you want to know what is actually going on, as you see here, we have the name of the group, which is the official name of the group is the National Counter Unmanned Aerial Vehicles UAV Stakeholder Advisory Group, hereafter named the group. As I said, I'm not going to read the entire document. I want to be able to pick the parts out of here which are going to be the most important to us. So the background of the group is the formation of the group has been requested by DAC Lucy Diorsi in her role as chair of the National Policing Working Group, to assist the National Police Chiefs Council, NPCC, and the College of Policing by providing independent external expertise and critical appraisal and advice in advance of decisions around counter UAV measures in England and Wales. Input provided by the group may also be of relevance to the Home Office, Department of Transport, and other decision makers whose work pertains to UAVs. Members of the group agree to participate under the constitution set out below. And as I say, we'll go through a few of these bits and pieces so you can get an understanding of what it actually is. The group will be consulted in advance of all major decisions, whether they are proposals and developments related to police-led CA counter UAV equipment, tactics, techniques, procedures and strategies, in order that the group may provide expertise and critical appraisal and advice at the earliest possible stage. This will extend to all areas of policing, counter-terrorism, serious and organised crime, public order and conventional policing. In order to do this, the group will have permanent representation on the National CUAV Working Group, which will be attended by the advisory group's chair or another nominated member, have the opportunity to comment on relevant papers before they are presented to the working group, the NPCC Chief Council, and other key decision-making bodies. The group will be informed by the NPCC via the chair or, in exceptional circumstances, directly, who will act as a single point of contact for the group, etc., etc. These are all sort of, housekeeping parts, as it were. The group's role is not to investigate complaints around individual instances involving police use of CUAV measures, or provide comment as a group on ongoing investigations or incidents, or to replace broad consultation around CUAV issues. Membership of the group does not stop individual members from commenting on such cases or referencing their participation to the group should they wish to do so. And then it talks about the 2-year standard time, although that can be extended in terms of joining the group and that type of thing. So the meetings are obviously held regularly, ideally quarterly. The decision-making, the role of the group is to provide and collate advice from its membership. It is not anticipated that the group will routinely make collective decisions. If such a situation occurs, the group will endeavour to take any decisions by consensus. If all reasonable efforts at achieving consensus have been exhausted, how could that possibly happen, Graham? A simple majority of members present and voting will be sufficient. And then it talks about deadlocks and that type of thing. Operating protocols, they're expected to allow and encourage all colleagues to fully participate in open, free and constructive manner to treat others with respect. So it is debate that they're looking for. They are looking for honest feedback. This isn't just something to rubber stamp things and that type of thing, basically. It's also interesting to know that here at the bottom, under miscellaneous, there are 2 sections that I found quite interesting. Members who advise the police service are not liable for the outcomes of police service decision-making, it's good to know, and not answerable to the police service across the UK. And the NPCC is not obliged to follow the advice given by the group, although appropriate explanations must be given where it does not. So that is the basis. That is the basics of the Constitution. We are there to provide advice, guidance, and expertise in terms of, the background to things, basically. And really, as far as I'm concerned, it's an opportunity for me to I would never use the word represent, but give a voice of, not the only voice, but give a voice of the drone community from hobbyist all the way through to commercial user. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts were I think the most interesting part of that was probably the last sentence there, where they sort of have to provide reasons if they don't take the advice that's given. I mean, that to me makes it quite
Yeah, yeah.
powerful. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know, if there's sensible advice being put together by a group of people with broad experience of the subject matter,
Yes.
and that is chosen to be ignored or something else done, it's good that they have to give a reason why they're doing that.
No, indeed, and you know, it is something which I think. Obviously, I'm very new to it. I've attended one meeting so far, had a bit of correspondence here and there, and it's something which I'm, of course, going to keep a very close eye on in terms of and give more feedback in the future in terms of my experience on it. And it is important to obviously, you know, this is an independent group, and Geeksvana remains fiercely and proudly independent, and it's extremely important for me to express that. And now there's the next section I want to talk about is one that I don't want to upset other people who are doing some very, very good work, important work in the wider community out there, because there are a lot of people that are working very, very hard here and in the US, doing what they think is the right thing. So, and anyone that's working like that, I'm sure you'd agree, Graham, deserves at least our respect, because they're putting a lot of their personal time into it. But one thing which is actually important to discuss is, and one of the reasons why I chose to join this group and not others that have been certainly initially offered, who knows if I would have actually got onto the groups or not, who knows, but is the fact that this is enforcement and not drone regulation, which is, to me, is really important. It's a chance, in my opinion, to actually help drone flyers in the real world and how they interact with police whilst flying their drone. And I feel like it's a chance to actually make some kind of difference. I'm not massively keen, I don't know about you, Graham, on the whole sort of regulatory discussion groups in committees, as I'm not convinced they have any real impact. I'm not convinced that they really listen to. And again, I completely respect the people who are doing it. I just don't know whether or not even the FAA or the CAA have that much say in what is going to become the law or not, because of course they have the government sat above them. So, and then an advisory group under them, etc. I'm just not sure. But in terms of giving actual feedback regarding enforcement and the deployment of counter UAV technologies, etc., I think that has some value to it, because, you know, if they're asking for those opinions, why on earth wouldn't they listen to them?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think probably that, as you said, that's going to be a more direct impact every time. I'm the same as you, I suspect, with my about to say fear. No, is it a phobia? Committee phobia. There must be one. I mean, the thought of being on a committee, the number of committees I've asked to be on in my life about all sorts of things, flipping finance software, and notably one organisation asked me to sort of try and join a committee on the on drones. No, thank you. No,
there are a lot of organisations out there, a lot of groups that absolutely love a good committee.
We love a committee. Yes.
Yeah. And I love a good chat. I have a channel which is basically chatting to people like you about drones. So I love a good chat. But it's when committees are there and it's perceived that committee might actually have some value and things that as you, I completely agree. There is a committee-itis that I've always had as well. Now, some of my hopes in terms of what I hope this will do for us is that it is going to be a chance to regularly feedback how the community is feeling and to actually impact on how police train around drone enforcement. And it is, you know, if nothing else, it is a voice of the drone community here in the UK being fed directly back. I get a lot of emails, a lot of messages from people who have interacted with the police, both good and bad. And, you know, this does give us that opportunity to give that direct feedback.
Well, I do have a little question here scribbled down, and I don't know how much you can tell us. So you say you've attended one meeting, which I assume these days isn't an in-person attendance, but it might be.
I couldn't possibly tell you that.
Is it on video? Is it a video?
Hybrid, I believe, is the modern term, isn't it? But yes.
But okay, so no only virtual hobnobs involved, which are never as satisfying as the other thing.
No hobnobs were harmed in the making of that meeting, indeed.
So other members of the committee, are they drone operators or are they
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
what and who are they?
It's down to the individual committee members to decide whether or not they want to make public in terms of their sort of role on the committee. I'm sure there's some freedom of information response or request you could make to make this kind of thing pop out of the woodwork. I wouldn't say out, because it's not, but certainly there are trade bodies, there are people involved across the drone industry. Genuinely, I would say, of the people that attended this meeting, a very good number of them were people that I know to be active drone pilots at some level within it, including some others that I know for a fact do enjoy the hobby side of things as well, not just the commercial side. But there was certainly no, Danny from the FAA video wasn't there, if that makes sense. There wasn't an absolute roots person that doesn't have a YouTube channel, doesn't have it, etc. But again, I suppose it is supposed to be
they want advice. They want advice.
An advisory group of experts.
Something, yeah, absolutely. That's all good.
Yeah, so yes, a very wide, varied range. But there's people from the security industry. There's people who, from the legal side of things. There's people that would no more recognise probably a Parrot over a DJI, be able to tell you what brand they are from the look and that type of thing. But yes, there are a lot of people there who certainly are. So. I do feel like, and certainly I was very nervous going into the first meeting. I tried, my plan was to stay quiet, but a few of the topics that came up unfortunately triggered me and brought me chatting very, very, very openly, which is funny, which I have apologized to them for. But just the feeling of it, the fact that I felt confident in talking in my first session, etc., that type of thing, it does to me feel like a genuine attempt to communicate to my audience through me. And that's really one of the principles of having me there, is that they want to communicate through me, and they also want to hear what's going on the other way. Later this week, we've got an interview coming with Andy Harding, who is one of the MPCC. He's the manager of the counter drones team, and he talks a little bit more about it, and talks a little bit more about how they want to use Geeksvana in terms of being able to get the information flowing both ways, basically, which I think is very important. And this is a natural progression of that, basically.
Yeah. I think if they wanted you on there and said, yeah, you can't tell anybody about this, Sean, I think that would have been very scary for everyone concerned. But indeed. And I really do try to stay as transparent as I possibly can, I think is the word. I don't like the word as open as I can, because there's certain things I would always keep to myself, because it's this was also a very personal decision for me to make as well. But I'm very much there because of Geeksvana and because of my audience. So I wanted to bring everybody in on that journey, basically, frankly. I mean, I do have fears. So I am going to be watching this very, very closely. As you said before, I do have committee-itis. I'm generally wary of committees and meetings. I do worry, will they listen? But it is something which I think I have to it's a journey that, as you know, I've taken a lot of time in consideration and annoyed several people with very long phone calls talking about. But it is something that a decision, so I haven't taken lightly, but I will be keeping a very close eye on it, and I will be reviewing things to make sure that it has its value. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think they can go through phases as well, can't they, committees, where perhaps the mix of members changes over time, and they get more or less, not interesting, but more or less useful. And then it's a matter of seeing how long that's lasting and whether or not they're actually doing what they're supposed to do. And when they're not, I guess that's the point at which you walk away.
No, indeed. Exactly. It's a process which I think is something which is going to, obviously it's very new to me. This is another part of the evolution of Geeksvana that I'm very excited about, but it's also another part of it that I think is going to be very interesting to see how I feel about it and what video I'll be making about this in a year's time, if that makes sense. So because I do try to be transparent, I do try to be open, and if I feel like, you know, I've been messed around for a year or whatever, I will certainly come back and discuss that. Just very quickly in the chat, thank you Mark Big Bear for the $10 super chat. All the best to you and yours. Thank you Mark, I really appreciate it. Also I noticed that Ollie P £5, counter drugs, counter terrorism, counter UAV. Maybe police dropping the counter would help the community feel less targeted. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. And if you go to the first interview that we had with Andy Harding on the channel, who obviously is the lead of the NPCC counter drone team, it's something which they're aware of is feels like a negative. The problem is twofold. I'm going to try and explain this succinctly. Obviously, I'm not here to explain on their behalf, but I'm going to try and explain this as far as what I've been told, because it's something that obviously has been raised by the audience and raised by me. It's also raised in the second interview again that's coming up later this week. And that is basically that it's really from a government perspective what the sort of counter side of things brings. So counter drones does actually mean, you know, this is the side of the policing that are dealing with. They're very, very nasty people who would like to do very, very nasty things with drones. Those rare occasions out there. So, you know, the use of drones in terror and everything else like that. Hence the counter-terror mention in the Constitution, etc. So it's a very difficult thing. There's also other departments throughout government that are the pro drones and the this drones and the that drones. So it actually identifies them as well, basically, in terms of who and what they do. But it is something which they're constantly reviewing. And I know for a fact that they have looked at other names. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in the future. But thank you very much for the super chat, Ollie P. I really do appreciate it.
They're essentially counter the bad drones, which then leaves the sky clear for the good drones.
Yeah, and I suppose any enforcement of drone rules, if you are having to enforce drone rules on someone, i.e. therefore they you know, the hope is if they're enforcing them, it means someone's done something wrong. That's certainly what you hope, isn't it? Not just enforcing them. Then therefore it is that in itself is also a counter drone mechanism as such. So yes, so it is something that I'm aware of, but I think there's a little bit more sort of complexity to it there. Legwork, thank you very much for gifting a membership, and that's actually gone to Justin Dromer. Oh no, that was actually given to Lambo Drive. Zambo was gifted a membership, and Justin Dromer Gaming RP has become a drone geek, has become a member. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that.